So what's up, guys? TikTok, what's going on? Family, IG, what's going on? So today we are getting back into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, book read. Book read, book read. Whoever is that requesting me on live, you come on my live, you're going to have to help me read. You want to help read? Or discuss this book? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Since I did say I was going to start at 8 and I am running a little bit behind. All right. You want to follow along? We are on page 74. All right. So the number one expense. The number one expense for most people is taxes. Woohoo! We are in tax season right now. Many people think it's income tax, but for most Americans, their highest tax is Social Security. And an employee, it appears as if the Social Security tax combined with Medicare tax rate is roughly 7.5%. But it's really 15% since the employer must match the Social Security amount. In essence, it is money that employer can't pay you. On top of that, you still have to pay income tax on the amount deducted from your wages of Social Security tax. Income you will never receive because it went directly to Social Security through withholdings. Going back to the young couple, as a result of their income increasing, they decide to buy a house of their dreams. Once they are in the house, I don't know if this can, hope this one don't go off. Hope you guys, for some reason, my connection be bad on TikTok. I don't know why. Okay. Once in their house with a mortgage, they have a new tax called property tax. If you have a mortgage, you already know what that is. Then they buy a new car, new furniture, and new appliances to match their house. Excuse me. All of a sudden, they wake up and their liability column is full of mortgage and credit card debt. Their liability goes up. So it shows all the different charts and stuff on here as well. All right. So they're now trapped in the rat race, like most Americans are, as they say, trapped in the rat race. Pretty soon, a baby come along and then works harder. The process repeats itself. Higher income causes higher taxes, also cause bracket creeps. A credit card comes in the mail. They use it and max it out. A loan company calls and says their greatest asset is their home, has appreciated in value. Because their credit is so good, the company offers a bill consolidation loan and tells them the intelligent thing to do is clear off the high interest consumer debt by paying off their credit cards. And besides, mortgage interest is a tax deduction. They go for it and pay off the high interest credit cards. They breathe a sign of relief. Their credit cards are paid off. They now folded their consumer debt into their home mortgage. Their payments go down because they extended their debt over 30 years. Woo! Their payment goes down because they extended over 30 years. It is a smart thing to do. Their neighbor calls to invite them to go shopping. The Memorial Day sale is on. They promise themselves they'll just window shop, but they take their credit card just in case. Who knows that one right there? You're going to go window shopping, but you always buy something. I run into this young couple all the time. Their names change, but their financial dilemma is the same. They come to one of my talks to hear what I have to say. They ask me, can you tell us how to make more money? They don't understand that their trouble is really how they choose to spend the money they do have. It is caused by financial literacy and not understanding the difference between an asset and liability. Okay. More money seldom solves someone's money's problems. Intelligence solves problems. There's a saying a friend of mine uses over and over to people in debt. If you find you have dug yourself in a hole, stop digging. That is most us Americans, right? Okay, so as a child, my dad often told us that the Japanese were aware of three powers: the power of the sword, the jewel, and the mirror. The sword symbolized the power of weapons. America has spent trillions of dollars on weapons, and because of this, is a powerful military presence in the world, which we all do know that. The jewel symbolized the power of money. There is some degree of truth of saying, remember the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. True. The mirror symbolized the power of self-knowledge. This self-knowledge, according to Japanese legend, was the most treasured of three. All too often, the poor and middle class allow their power of money to control them by simply getting up and working harder, failing to ask themselves if what they do makes sense. They shoot themselves in the foot as they leave for work every morning. By not fully understanding money, the vast majority of people allow its awesome power to control them. If they use the power of the mirror, they will have asked themselves, does this make sense? All too often, instead of trusting their inner wisdom, that genius inside, most people follow the crowd. They do things because everybody else do them. Okay, they conform rather than question. Often they mindless repeat. Hey TikTok, if you go live with me, you're gonna have to read. I don't know who that is. All right. So they often, rather than question, often they mindless repeats what they have been told. Diversify. Your home is an asset. Your home is the biggest investment. You get a tax break of going into greater debt. Get a safe job. Don't make mistakes. Don't take risks. I think we've all been told to get a job and work the 40, 50-year plan, right? All right. So it is said that the fear of public speaking is a fear greater than death for most people. According to the psychiatrist, the fear of public speaking is caused by the fear of ostracism, the fear of standing out, the fear of criticism, the fear of ridicule, and the fear of being an outcast. The fear of being different prevents most people from seeking new ways to solve their problems. Yes. So that is what my educated dad said. The Japanese value the power of the mirror the most, for it's only when we look into it that we find truth. Fear is the main reason that people say play it safe. That goes for anything, be it sports, relationship, careers, or money. Yes, fear. It is the same fear, the fear of that causes people to conform to and not question commonly accepted opinions or popular trends. Your home is an asset. Get a bill consolidation loan and get out of debt. Work harder. It's a promotion. Someday I'll be vice president. Save money. When I get a raise, I'll buy a bigger house. Mutual funds are safe. Most financial problems are caused by trying to keep up with the Joneses. Occasionally, we all need to look in the mirror and be true to our inner wisdom rather than our fears. That's true. So sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror and ask the path that you are going on financially, is it going to benefit you? Is it going to help you? Is it, are you on the right track to be where you want to be? Excuse me, guys. By the time Mike and I was 16 years old, we began to have problems in school. We were not bad kids. We just began to separate from the crowd. We worked for Mike's dad after school and on weekends. Mike and I often spent hours after working just sitting at a table with his dad while he held meetings with his bankers, attorneys, accountants, brokers, investors, managers, and employees. Here was a man who had left school at 13, who was now directing, instructing, ordering, and asking questions from educated people. They came at his beck and called and cringed when he didn't approve of them. Here is a man who had not gone along with the crowd. He was a man who who did his own thinking, and that's his words. We have to do it his way, this way, because that's the way everyone else do it. He also hated the word can't. Who else hates the word can't? I know I do. Anybody over here on TikTok hate it? Anybody on IG? So Mike and I learned more sitting in on his meetings that we did in all our years of school, college included. Mike's dad was not book smart, but he was financially educated and successful as a result. He told us over and over again, an intelligent person hires people who are more intelligent than he is. So Mike and I had the benefit of spending hours listening to and learning from intelligent people. But because of this, Mike and I couldn't go along with the standard dogma our teachers preach, and that caused problems. Whenever the teacher said, if you don't get good grades, you won't do well in the real world. Mike and I just raised our eyebrows. When we were told to follow set procedures and not to deviate from the rules, we could see how school discouraged creativity. We started to understand why our rich dad told us that schools were designed to produce good employees instead of employers. Occasionally, Mike and I would ask our teachers how what we studied was applicable for the real world, or why we never studied money and how it worked. To the latter question, we often got the answer that money was not important, that it was excelled in our education, the money will follow. The more we knew about the power of money, the more distance we grew from the teachers in our classroom. Yes, they don't teach about money in school, do they? My highly educated dad never pressured me about grades, but we did begin to argue about money. By the time I was 16, I probably had a far better foundation with money than both my parents. I could keep books. I listened to tax accountants, corporate attorneys, bankers, real estate brokers, investors, and so forth. By contrast, my dad talked only to other teachers. One day, my dad told me that our home was his greatest investment. A not too pleasant argument took place when I showed him why I thought a house was not a good investment. A house is actually a good investment. Apartment building, house, and if you're going to rent it out, etc., it's a good investment. The diagram above illustrates the difference in perceptions between my rich dad and my poor dad when it came to their homes. One dad thought his house was an asset, and the other dad thought it was a liability. I remember when I drew the following diagram for my dad, showing him the direction of cash flow. I also showed him the expenses that went along with owning the home. A bigger home meant bigger expenses, and the cash flow kept going out through the expense column. Today, people still challenge me on the idea of a house not being an asset. I know that for many people, it is their dream as well as their largest investment, and owning your home is better than nothing. I simply offer an alternative way of looking at this popular dogma. If Kim and I were to buy a bigger, flashier house, we realize it wouldn't be an asset. It would be a liability since it would take money out of our pocket. So here is the argument I put forth. I really don't expect most people to agree with it because your home is an emotional thing, and when it comes to money, high emotions tend to lower financial intelligence. I know from personal experiences that money has a way of making every decision emotional. That's true. Oh, then I don't know if anybody's following along, but you can see the diagrams. All right, so let's turn on the next page. Let's see where we at on this chapter. Okay. When it comes to houses, most people work all their lives paying for a home and they never own. In other words, most people buy a house for every few years and every time incurring a new 30-year loan to pay off the previous one. Even though people receive a tax deduction for interest on mortgage payments, they pay for all the other expenses with after-tax dollars, even after they pay off their mortgage. Kim's parents were shocked when the property taxes on their home increased $1,000 a month. They had already retired, so they increased put a strain on their budget. Houses do not always go up in value. I have friends who owe $1 million for a home and today would sell it for far less. The greatest losses of all those from missed opportunities. If all your money is tied up in your home, you may be forced to work harder because your money continues blowing out of the expense column instead of adding to the asset column. The classic middle class cash flow pattern. If a young couple will put more money into the asset column early on, their later years will be easier. Their assets will have been grown and will be available to help cover expenses. So, making a decision to own a house that is too expensive in lieu of starting an investment portfolio impacts an individual as at least the following 3 ways: loss of time, loss of additional capital, and loss of education. I am not saying don't buy a house. What I am saying is that you should understand the difference between an asset and liability. When I want a bigger house, I first buy assets that will generate the cash flow to pay for the house. That's the key. My educated dad's personal financial statements best demonstrates the life of someone caught in the rat race. His expenses match his income, never allowing him enough left over to invest in assets. As a result, his liabilities are larger than his assets. The following diagram on the left shows my poor dad's income statement. It is worth 1,000 words. It shows that his income and expenses are equal while his liabilities are larger than assets. My rich dad's personal financial statement on the right reflects the result of a life dedicated to investing and minimizing liabilities. And here are the statements down here. You can see them. Statements. So these charts, actually, you know what? These charts would be good to, I'm just going to put me a little sticky note in here and kind of do a chart for myself. All right. So when the rich get richer, a review of Rich Dad's financial statement shows why the rich gets richer. The asset column generates more than enough income to cover expenses, with the balance reinvested into the asset column. The asset column continues to grow, and therefore the income it produces grows with it. The result is that the rich get richer. Why the middle class struggles. The middle class finds itself in a constant state of financial struggles because the primary income is through their salary. As their wages increase, so do their taxes. Their expenses tend to increase in proportion to their salary increases. Hence the phrase, the rat race. They treat their home as their primary asset instead of investing in income-producing assets. And here's another state diagram you can see. All right. So the patterns of treating your home as an investment and the philosophy that a pay raise means you can buy a larger home or spend more is the foundation of today's debt-ridden society. Increased spending throws families into greater debt and into more financial uncertainties, even though they have been advancing in their jobs and receiving pay raises. This is a high-risk living caused by weak financial education. The massive losses of jobs in recent times proves how shaky the middle class really is financially. Company pension plans are being replaced by 401k plans. Social Security is obviously in trouble and can't be relied upon on a source of retirement. Panic has set in for the middle class. Today's mutual funds are popular because they supposedly represent safety. Average mutual fund buyers are too busy working to pay taxes and mortgages, save for their children's college, and pay off credit card debt. They do not have time to study investing, so they rely on the expertise of their manager of a mutual fund. Also, because the mutual funds includes many different types of investments, they feel their money is safer because it is diversified. This educated middle class subscribes to the dogma put out by mutual fund brokers and financial planners. Play it safe and avoid risk. The real tragedy is that the lack of early financial education is what creates the risk faced by average middle class people. The reason they have to play it safe is because their financial positions are tenuous at best. Their balance sheets are not balanced. Instead, they are loaded with liabilities and they have no real assets to generate income. So typically, their only source of income is their paycheck. Their livelihood becomes entirely dependent on their employer. So when genuine deals of a lifetime come along, these people can't take advantage of them because they are working so hard, are taxed to the max, and they are loaded with debt. As I said at the start of this section, the most important rule is to know the difference between an asset and a liability. Once you understand the difference, concentrate your efforts on buying income-generating assets. That's the best way to get started on a path of becoming rich. Keep doing that, and your asset columns will grow. Keep liabilities and expenses down so more money is available to continue pouring into asset columns. Soon the asset base will be so deep that you can afford to look at more investments that may have a return of 100% to infinity. 5,000 investments that are soon turned into 1 million or more. Investments that the middle class calls too risky. The investment is not risky for the financial literate. If you do what the masses do, you get the following picture. And then it's just another income statement. And this shows the, okay. So let me see. We'll just finish this study guide out and start on study 2 next time. Okay. So as an employee who is also a homeowner, your working efforts are generally as follows. You work for the company. Employees make the business owner or the shareholders rich, not themselves. Your efforts and success will help provide for the owner's success in retirement. You work for the government. The government takes its share from your paycheck before you even see it. So by working harder, you simply increase the amount of taxes taken by the government. Most people work from January to May just for the government. And then you work for the bank. After taxes, the largest expense is usually your mortgage and credit card debt. The problem with simply working harder is that each of these 3 levels take a greater share of your increased efforts. You need to learn how to have your increased efforts benefit you and your family directly. So once you have decided to concentrate on minding your own business, focusing your efforts on acquiring assets instead of bigger paychecks, how do you set your goals? Most people must keep their job and rely on the wages to fund their acquisitions of assets. As their assets grows, how do they measure the extent of their success? When does someone have that they are rich, that they have wealth? As well as having my own definition for assets and liabilities, I also have my own definition for wealth. Actually, I borrowed it from a man named R. Buckminster Fuller. Some call him a quack, and others call him a genius. Years ago, he got architects buzzing because he applied for a patent for something called a geodesic dome. But in this application, Fuller also said something about wealth. It was pretty confusing at first, but after reading it, it began to make sense. Wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward. Or if I stop working today, how long can I survive? Unlike net worth, which is the difference between your assets and liabilities, and is often filled with a person's expensive junk or opinions of what things are worth. This definition creates the possibility for developing a truly accurate measurement. I could now measure and know where I was in the terms of my goals to become financially independent. Although net worth often includes non-cash producing assets, like stuff you bought that is now sit in your garage. Wealth measures how much money your money is making and therefore your financial survivability. Wealth is a measure of cash flow from the asset column compared to your expense column. So let's use an example. So let's say I have cash flow from my asset column for $1,000 a month, and I have monthly expenses of $2,000. What is my wealth? Let's go back to Buckminster Fuller's definition, using the definition, how many days forward can I survive? Assuming a 30-day month, I have enough cash flow for a half a month. So when I receive $2,000 a month cash flow from my assets, then I will be wealthy. So while I am not yet rich, I am wealthy. I now have income generating from assets each month that fully covers my monthly expenses. So if I want to increase my expenses, I first must increase my cash flow to maintain this level of wealth. Also note that this is at this point that I am no longer depending on wages. I have focused on being successful in building an asset column that has made me financially independent. So if I quit my job today, I will be able to cover my monthly expenses with the cash flow from the asset. My next goal would be to have the excess cash flow from my asset reinvested into the asset column. The more money that goes into my asset column, the more money asset column grows. So the more my asset grows, the more cash flow grows. And as long as I keep my expenses less than the cash flow from the assets, I grow richer with more and more income from sources other than my physical labor. As this reinvestment process continues, I am well on my way to becoming rich. Just remember the simple observations. The rich buy assets, okay? The poor only have expenses. So they spend their money on whatever. And the middle class buy liabilities they think are assets. So how do I start minding my own business? What is the answer? Listen to the founder of McDonald's in the next chapter. Oh, that should be good. All right, so we're going to stop there. Because I normally come on here for just a half hour. So we're going to stop there. Anybody have some questions? And for anybody that's joining us, we are reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So if you want to follow on, I normally post a banner. I normally come on Mondays around 8. But this week I couldn't do Monday. Something came up, so I fit it in today. So, but yeah, if I come back on anytime again this week, I'll post a banner. If not, it'll be next Monday around the same time. And if anybody wants to join along, get your book before then and follow through. And if you have any questions, we can discuss them then. All right. All right. Thanks for watching, TikTok family. I will see you guys next week. Bye. I don't know who that was that came on here. All right. And bye, IG family.